Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the quintessential Eagles pregame show. I'm not saying that because I'm on it. I'm saying that because that's the truth. Welcome back to the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. He is the midday show producer on 94 WIP that you can catch on the FM side of your dial every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Kyle, what's up, man?
What's up, Matty B? Thanks for having me, buddy.
Anytime, Kyle. Thanks for coming back. It is Saturday evening, everybody out there in the Delaware Valley and points beyond. I know. Listen, this show is a fluid show. I've warned you all about that from the very outset. So we're here. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter what time it is. The game hasn't been played, and we're here. So I'm okay with that, Kyle. But let's get right into it. Kyle, we got a 6-2 football team, but you told me that this wasn't going to be the trap game, meaning the Jacksonville game. And it didn't look like it was a trap game until it started looking like it was a trap game. Kyle, how do you feel coming out of that 28-23 win? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. You know, like it did end up being a closer game than I think any of us wanted it to be. But I mean, the Jags have found themselves in some pretty close games for a lot of this year against some pretty good teams. Now, we shot ourselves in the foot a few times, especially in the second half. But I also feel like that was kind of one of those games where you come away with it, take a few days, and you're like, we dominated the Jags a lot more than the final score would indicate. So I'm feeling all right, 6-2. And yeah, you got another good opportunity coming up here this week.
Yeah, and we are going to definitely spend a lot of time. This is, how we do with this. We go back before we go forward. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but of course we're going to spend a lot of time on the Dallas Cowboys. Really, really key game here, I think. But let's talk a little bit about the good, bad, and ugly in this Jacksonville game. I'll start with the good. Saquon Barkley continues to yet again amaze and mystify people with his abilities. Yes, he did have that fumble, and yes, you can maybe we can argue the fact that he was down by contact, whatever. But, it did happen. But, Kyle, as we progress now through week 9, this guy seems to be the heart and soul of the Philadelphia Eagle offensive attack. That's a good thing, but, Kyle, it can be a bad thing because other aspects of this offense, in my opinion, don't seem to be kind of picking it up at this point.
So it can be a bad thing if that's the only thing that they're really doing well at all. I don't think that they're necessarily a bad passing team. They're just a team that doesn't pass as much, but when they do it, they do it with a lot of efficiency. I mean, Hurts has pretty high completion percentage numbers. He's an accurate quarterback, and now he's not turning the ball over. And, guys are getting in the end zone. Devontae Smith had, I think, a few good games back-to-back here. Another great catch in the corner of the end zone. And like I said, Hurts is on target for the most part in that game. So I know a lot of people like to compare it to the 2021 year when we were just a run offense and that's all we could do. The difference is I don't think that's all we can do. I think we can push the ball down the field if necessary. And we have guys on the outside that can make explosive plays. Even if you just end up getting the ball to AJ on like a slant route or something, he's the type of dude that can bust a 70-yard touchdown. So as long as that's not the only thing that they can do on offense, then I think it's fine for that to be your bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is. I'm not sitting here complaining that we are rushing first team. That's not what I'm trying to say. And if it works, don't fix it. But God forbid, we lose Saquon Barkley. There goes the running attack down the drain. And then we have to rely on a passing attack that, as you said, is effective. But one still does not use the middle of the field. 25 passes this past weekend and only 5 attempts down the middle of the field. For the season, Kyle, 215 pass attempts and only 25 targets to the middle of the field for a putrid 11.6%. So I'm not really feeling you completely on the fact that we do the passing well. I think we do the passing well because we can do the running so well.
Well, let me ask you what you think of the Lions, right? The Lions are the best team in the NFC.
Yep.
If you think that they're a passing team, you're fooling yourselves. Jared Goff just won a game throwing 85 yards on 10 attempts the other day, and they have 2 good running backs. Granted, now the Saquon Barkley thing is true. I can't concern myself with a player getting injured just because, guys are going to get injured, and we'll have to face that if that happens. But the Lions are a running football team. Now, they can pass. They don't do it often, but they can. I mean, the Lions can push the ball downfield if necessary, but the Lions are viewed as the best offense probably in all of football, and it's because they run the ball really well.
No, I'm totally 100%. And obviously, everything is now kind of geared up towards the Lions and comparing ourselves because that seems to be the class of the NFC. On the day, Saquon was 27 carries for 159 yards. His longest of the day was 21 yards. He did have a rushing touchdown in this game. He also had a receiving touchdown as he continues to be everything that Eagles fans could want. The other good point about this game, Kyle Quinn, and I cannot believe I'm talking about this way, and I don't. It kind of came out of nowhere, and don't tell me you saw it coming either because you didn't. What is going on with the Eagles linebackers? When did they become like an All-Pro group? Literally overnight.
That's the Vic Fangio effect. His defense is predicated on having good linebacker play. I don't think anyone expected it to be coming from Zach Vaughn and Nakobe Dean, but I mean, that's the guy you can point the finger to when you're wondering where the hell did this come from. That's where it came from. I mean, he needs his linebackers to play really well. He gets the best out of his linebackers. I think he's the one that identified Zach Vaughn as a guy sort of off the scrap heap and brought him in for 1 year. The Nakobe thing is a great surprise. I think people saw that there could have been some potential in there, but he's been playing really well. And I think the good thing about the linebackers this season is that they're getting better and better at pass coverage. You saw Nakobe make that interception. Zach Vaughn getting a pick. He had some really great coverage snaps too. So the whole defense is rounding into form, and a lot of that has to do with the linebackers.
3 turnovers forced on the day by that vaunted Eagles defense, and as you mentioned, the Nakobe Dean at the end of the game to seal the deal. And if you ask me, I had a lot of Atlanta Falcons vibes on that final Jacksonville drive, but you know what? Hey, it worked out for the Eagles, and that's what happens sometimes. So let's now talk a little bit about the ugly, Kyle, because there was some ugly in this game. The Eagles built that 22-0 lead, and then were outscored 23-6 the rest of the way. I get it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, Kyle, but you got to have more of a consistent type of attack. I'm not telling you to run up 150 points, but you can't expect to build up a 22-0 lead and then try to hold on against the Jacksonville Jaguars if you're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, sure, but I mean, they shot themselves in the foot. They can't do that, right? I mean,
well, right.
So some of the stuff where they're chasing points on a few of them, and then Saquon Barkley, the fumble is the biggest swing in the game. The fumble made every other thing that they did in that game that was a mistake matter, and put the Jags right into that game, like right behind you. So that was the biggest turning point of the entire game. I don't expect that to be something that happens often. But, again, this is the NFL. You're not going to blow every team out every single week. So the fact that they've been able to do it the last 2 weeks and then won against the Bengals team that I think looks like, they're like one of the most dangerous, 4-win teams in all of football. And the fact that they were able to do that in Cincinnati as underdogs on the road that was a really good win. So you're not going to be able to do that kind of stuff every week. Granted, Jags stink, but they're a tough team sometimes. They like to hang around.
Yeah, no, as I said, it was ugly, but it worked. And, you can't be too critical because a win, I hate to say, win's a win. I can't say that, but yeah. The other last ugly thing I want to talk about before we get into the Birds Blast stat pack, Kyle Quinn, your head coach, continues to mystify and amaze everybody as well as Nick Sirianni. Apparently, is there a memo coming down from the league that's just going to do away with the extra point and go to just 2-point conversions? Because are they working on that now just to kind of get a head start on this? 6 points left on the field by Nick Sirianni. Some pundits say it was 8 points. I'm going to go with 6. Kyle, you can't leave points on the field.
Yeah, you can. I mean,
no, you can't.
No,
sure you can't.
I mean, we love when our head coach is aggressive, right? Doug Peterson was aggressive when the Philly special in the Super Bowl. Nick Foles drops that. We're all like, yeah, I can't leave points on the board against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But we love the play, and we love Doug because he had big balls in those situations. And we were upset with Nick Sirianni when he kicked the field goal against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And A.J. Brown, after the game, is like, I knew we were going to lose when we kicked the field goal instead of going for it and trying to get a touchdown. I mean, this is what coaches do in the NFL now. You saw Zach Taylor go for a 2 for the win over Baltimore. This is the league that we're in right now, and this is not just a Nick Sirianni thing. I will say the one I didn't like, there was one I didn't like, was the going for the 2 the second time to go up 17. They could have gone up 17-0. That would have been a 3-score game right there. I think you don't chase the points after it fails the first time. But I do also have to say, I understand being enticed by a 1-yard play when you're the team that supposedly does the tush push really well. and you get a penalty on the extra point, you get to move up to the 1 yard line. That's a spot where I think a lot of Eagles fans say, yeah, why not go for two? Like, just put your foot on the throat of the Jacksonville Jaguars and put them away. I mean, you could have ended any sort of momentum that they would have gained after that, like just right then and there. Don't like the chasing the 2 points after that. But really, other than that, like, I didn't really find a lot of the things that he did in that game totally egregious.
Kyle, there's aggressive play calling and big balls play, and then there's just stupid play. And I'm sorry, when it's situations account for or want you to go for two, then go for it. But I didn't see that. They weren't. It was a blowout up to a certain point. Just kick the one, get the extra guaranteed point, and now nothing's guaranteed. And then the field goal. I mean, come on, Kyle. I get what you're saying, and you're absolutely 100% right. We're all saying, oh, why didn't you go for it here? Why didn't you go for it there? What are you doing kicking a field goal in the Super Bowl? I understand that, but come on, it's getting caricature-like on top of everything else that he's doing. And as we move through the stretch, and we're coming out of that, and I'm not going to say soft part of the schedule because we're getting into some really interesting games over the next 6 weeks. You're going to have to try to get as many points as you can throughout the game, Kyle. Don't you agree?
I do agree, but I don't think it's only like when we say like the coach leaves points on the board. Like, sure, that's an easy thing to say, especially for a city that clearly does not like Nick Sirianni. He had an uphill climb going into the season. We can all agree to that, right? Like,
Absolutely.
He was going to have to do a whole lot this year to gain back favor from Eagles fans. But think about what happened in that game. Saquon had a fumble one, which we can argue about. That's leaving points on the board right there. A massive swing in that game. You have Saquon sliding before the first down marker instead of trying to dive forward and get it, which could have effectively end the game. That's a huge moment in the game. Forget leaving points on the board. That's ending the game right there. You have Jalen Hurts throwing behind A.J. Brown on a critical third down play where they can't continue that drive. That's leaving points on the board. I just think we get a little bit too hyper-focused on the head coach. And granted, he had a lot of moments in this game where a decision was necessary to be made. I just think maybe we're freaking out that he left all these points on the board, but in reality, I think maybe one or two of them were worth debate on whether or not they were a bad move or not.
Yeah, tomatoes, because it's going to work, and as he said it at the end of the game, he's going to get crucified when it doesn't work, and then he's going to be lauded when it does work. But now it seems to be being lauded when it works, because obviously they won, and yet there's still a lot of criticism. And you're right. The verdict is, I think people have decided they're Nick Sirianni's fate already. I get what you're saying, but I'm just telling you, Kyle, it's a slippery slope to walk upon when you're literally just snatching points out of your mouth, and that's how I'm going to go with that.
I understand. It's just when you're in a close game, then all the decisions become way more magnified. Like, the Eagles can do themselves a favor by kicking the Jags' ass to begin with, right? They were up 22-0. They keep their foot on the gas pedal, and none of these things matter. Like, the fact that the Jags were in the game means that so we're not talking about any of the points left on the board if they win 30-0 anyway, right? So it's just going to be what it is. I mean, every good head coach is going to make a bad decision, and especially in big games. We've seen Andy Reid make tons of bad decisions in big games, and everyone rips Andy Reid for it, but no one's going to deny that Andy Reid gives his team an advantage on game days and during the week. So
he's also got those big trophies too.
Of course, yeah. I understand that, but Andy Reid's obviously an extreme comparison. But point being is that we like to hyper focus a little bit on some of the decisions when there's a lot of moments in the game that can hurt you or you can benefit from.
I agree, and you're right. We can go back and forth on this, but the last thing I do want to talk about this game before we transition to the stat pack and then we transition to them damn Dallas Cowboys is this, Kyle. We got ourselves some first quarter touchdown points. It did not come on the opening drive as the Eagles stalled out, but then they got the turnover on the ensuing punt and put the ball in the end zone on the first quarter, ending their first quarter scoreless drought of the season. And was it a good sign, Kyle, that they were actually able to get some first quarter points, or is it still kind of concerning that opening drive doesn't seem to be working yet?
Yeah, I mean, the opening drive obviously didn't. That wasn't something that you wanted to see after the way that they started last week. Their first drive getting points, the 3 points, right? It seems like they're sort of trending in the right direction, at least in the beginning of games. But yeah, you'd like to see them go right down the field and score a touchdown on that opening drive. That's still something that we're going to be chasing, apparently.
Yeah, I think so. But let's talk about some of the stats from this game. On the red zone for the day, the Eagles were 3 for 4, which is very good. 17 for 29 on the season. They're still less than 60%. First half points, Kyle, a season high of 16 first half points. Hallelujah! They broke through in the first half. Now in the season, 81 first half points for an average of about 10.1. In the second half, 12 points. The Eagles actually scored more points, Kyle, in the first half than they did in the second. Now for 118 points on the season, 14.7 for the game, or for the, average for the game. Penalties of the game, 8 penalties for 61 yards, 67 yards, excuse me. That is not good no matter how you cut it. That number is on the rise now, Kyle. 44 penalties now for 268 yards, 6 penalties and 34 yards a game. Kyle, that's been a thing that the Eagles have kind of slipped up a little bit lately, last 3 games or so. The penalties seem to be on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work those out. That's something that's going to bite you a lot, too, in big games against good teams. You definitely got to get the penalties worked out.
They did force those 3 turnovers like we talked about, now 7 for the season, about less than 1 a game. They committed 1 more. They did commit the turnover, as I mentioned, a Saquon fumble. 9 now on the season. They allowed 3 sacks for 20 yards, 22 now for 58 in the season. They did get to Trevor Lawrence twice for 14 yards, 22 sacks now in the year, and 0 for 2 on fourth down effectiveness, now 11 for 18 for 61.1%. And there you have your stat pack. And, of course, the last thing I do want to talk about, Kyle, of course, we both had this game picked correctly. Me and you both got the Eagles in this game. I am now 2-6, trending upwards out of the cellar. Kyle, you've moved back to 500 at 4-4. And more specifically, Kyle, I think I can honestly, I think it's safe to say that we both picked the player of the game as well. You could make a case for Vaughn or Dean, but we both went with Barkley. Are you okay with going with Saquon as the player of this game?
Yeah, you got to go with Saquon. If you're like Vaughn and Dean worked as a unit, Saquon was a horse.
So that means for the first time in 8 weeks, I got the player of the game correct. This is your 4th time picking the player of the game correct, Kyle. You're on another level of me, but the season still has some life left. Some life left in it, so we'll see how we can go. All right, let's now switch our attention to an NFC East battle. The Cowboys, it was Dallas week, in case you did not notice, because honestly, you couldn't tell me that it was Dallas week. It's gotten so vanilla, but we got Dallas week. The Eagles are now 6-2, Cowboys 3-5. Cowboys coming into this thing a little bit banged up. We'll get into that, but let's talk about the uniforms. Cowboys going with the traditional white and teal blue bottoms. Eagles going with the green and white combo. Weather in Arlington is going to be sunny and 80, so no weather conditions to speak of in this game. Injury report, Kyle, Quinn. A couple notables for the Eagles. We'll talk about the Eagles first. A couple notables. Everybody is back. Allegedly is going to be in this game that's not on the IR currently. But Dallas Goedert should be back for this game. And A.J. Brown, who left the game, was a full participant yesterday in practice. Kyle, talk to me about the Eagles' injury situation first. Definitely interesting to see Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown returning to the Eagles' offense. Should hopefully maybe spur some more passing and maybe a little bit more creativity.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the very least, it creates. It's just more of a threat. I mean, for AJ, at the very least, not massive difference without Dallas Goedert. No offense to the guy, Grant Calcaterra stepped up pretty nicely in that role. He has. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But you see how this offense changes when AJ Brown's out of the lineup. I mean, it's a completely different offense. That's where the offense looks more like the 2021 Eagles offense. That's the difference. Is AJ Brown makes it so that you have a more dangerous offense. Just the fact that him and Goddard in the lineup, it's a big deal. It could help Saquon and it could just help the offense as a whole.
Yeah, I might have dodged definitely a bullet there. And then for the Cowboys, the big story is Dak Prescott is going to have season-ending hamstring surgery here soon. Apparently, the hamstring was actually pulled off the bone, that injury that he suffered on Sunday. Sounds painful as hell. And but he's done. Enter Cooper Rush, I guess, right? Is that the backup, Cooper Rush?
Yep.
And then Micah Parsons is trending on his way back. Missed the last 5 games. So we could talk about the backup quarterback situation and then, of course, the Micah Parsons effect for this team. Eagles come into this game, I think, considerably more healthy than the Cowboys.
Yeah, they definitely do. Well, the Eagles are a pretty spotless injury report. Cowboys losing their starting quarterback is, I mean, they were 3-5 and they sucked anyway. But Cooper Rush is obviously a significant downgrade from Dak Prescott, even though they've shown in the past that they can win with him at quarterback. But those also had much better rosters around him, better defenses. I think their defense, the year they went like 4-1 with Cooper Rush, was like they were allowing like 12 points a game. That's certainly a massive difference from the team that we're seeing down there in Dallas right now. I mean, especially at home. Granted, without Micah Parsons, but they've just been awful with allowing points and stopping any teams really at home there. So getting Micah Parsons back will be a good one. But obviously the loss of Dak Prescott, I think, effectively ends their season.
Yeah, you might be right, and they couldn't have happened. It could not happen to a better bunch of people. You ask me, but let's get into the game. First thing I do want to talk to you, Kyle, is about Dallas week, because we've gone around about this before in years past, and I've been banging my head against the wall, not literally, but figuratively, trying to figure out what has happened to my Dallas week, and what has happened to all the venom, in a good way, that made up Dallas week. And then I've come to the consensus that it's one of two things. Dallas week doesn't work unless the Cowboys are good. Straight up. It doesn't work unless the Cowboys are good. Because if you look back in history, and it doesn't matter if the Eagles are good or bad, the Cowboys have to be good in order for Dallas week to be Dallas week, in my opinion. And the second thing is, kind of feeding off the first thing, the dominance of the Cowboys are long past. And I was going over the key moments of Eagles Cowboys in the past that have galvanized me as an Eagle fan. And the last one I could find was in 2013. So there hasn't been really meaningful Eagle Cowboy stuff in my life, or game swaying or life altering, since 2013. Kyle, I mean, it's a shame that Dallas week is not the way it is, but do you agree with that?
I mean, I definitely agree with that. At least for this year, there's not as much juice just because, one, the Cowboys stink. And I think another thing has to do a lot with the fact that, you would almost get more chesty Dallas Cowboys fans this week if Dak was playing, because then some of them would delude themselves into thinking that they were going to beat us. So that's lost a lot of luster there. I think just a lot of the wind is taken out of the Cowboys fan sails. I don't know if it's about when the Cowboys are good as much as it is when Cowboys fans are delusional about how good they are. And that's when they're annoying and we hate them. And then there's a lot of back and forth. And then you really get amped up and want them to beat the Cowboys' ass. I think that's really the biggest part of it.
Yeah, and I really, for those of you who out there who have never experienced what Dallas week is in its essence, it's a shame. And I really hope that it returns at some point, because there's nothing like it. I still go right to Dallas, the Cowboys games, when the schedule comes out. You still go there. You still try to kind of plan your day around that and your week around that. So it's a shame, because it's a special thing. It really is a very special thing. But all right, next thing I want to talk about, because we talked about, or I said that the trap game was the Jacksonville Jaguar game. Kyle, is it possible that this is the trap game?
Yeah, it's a much bigger trap game, to be honest. I mean, you're on the road, you have a short week, and then you have what could be, if you win this game, Washington wins, and you're either way, basically, is you're fighting for the division next week. This is a huge, huge game for both the Eagles and the Commanders. Huge game. This one's sort of just in the way, especially with Dak not playing. And you factor in the fact that they're going to get Micah Parsons back, who's the best player on their defense, right? So this is definitely a spot where the Eagles could overlook Cooper Rush and the Cowboys and just sort of look ahead a little bit to Washington.
I would prefer them to flex the Commander Eagles game to Monday Night Football or Sunday night, because coming off 4 days rest, it's going to be a really good game. And it's a shame they got to come off that way, but it is what it is. But you're right. I think it is. This has got trap game written all over it. But my question, more from the traditional trap standpoint, do the Eagles hold back with the Commanders looming on a short week?
No, I don't think they do that. I don't think coaches think like fans do, and you don't have to, don't show this or try to. I mean, I think it would be nice if that the best they could do for themselves is to blow them out so they can rest guys.
Sit the starters,
yeah. So, but they're not going to withhold any sort of scheme things. They're going to try, I think, especially the defense. This is sort of a tangent, but what I love about Vic Fangio, it's different from the other defensive Fangio disciples that we've had, is that his defense is different every week depending on the opponent. They have a base package, but the defense really is game plan specific, whereas Gannon's like, this is my defense every week. no matter what. And it either like has some good games
How do you do
or they
that?
just get absolutely torn apart and there's no adjustments whatsoever. So I love that
Yeah, how
about
do
this
you?
coaching staff. Love that about
Wow,
Fangio. And I
that's
think that
yeah.
that's kind of how they're going to approach this one.
And the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of break this, we go into our best part of the show, is that trade deadline has come and gone, and Eagles stood pat. Howie Roseman did not do it. We mentioned this on the show last week. You know, the Myles Garrett and the Crosby stuff obviously was going to cost some draft capital. I'm not, obviously Howie's not telling anybody that who he called or who he talked to or what his plan was. But Kyle, how do you feel about the Eagles standing pat and not making any moves, significant or insignificant at this
Yeah.
point?
I'm disappointed. I think it was kind of a failure, to be honest. Like think about all the other teams in the NFC that you're competing with, like, the good ones. I think every team in the NFL that was 6-2 or better made some sort of addition either at the trade deadline or, the week leading up. We did nothing. I mean, we didn't go get picks. We didn't try to add somebody to this edge rotation. So I don't know why. I mean, I would have done the Zadarius Smith deal. I would have done the Preston Smith deal even that
Yeah.
the Steelers did. So, I don't know. It's kind of a disappointing move for me because I think they really could have used another edge guy. Would have even been okay if they wanted to get another backup running back, just anything. But they really didn't do anything to improve the team, and I think they got worse just by comparison because the other teams did.
Yeah, and we talked about it. The draft capital is a little thin in 2025 right now. Now the compensation picks will kick in at some point. But there is some thin. There's only one first round pick, one second round pick, one third round pick, one fourth round pick, and 3 5s. It's a little thin. But we also mentioned, and you brought this up, the Eagles are going to be picking, if things don't fall off a cliff, around 23, 24, 25 in the first round. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's and then you go after a Myles Garrett or a Crosby. You're going after a top 10 talent, so you're significantly improving yourself by giving up a 25th overall draft pick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there is going to be time in the offseason if they want to try and get more draft picks. We'll see what happens a lot of time between now and April. But at least in terms of competing this season, there's nothing really they can do much anymore besides hoping that a miracle happens on the waiver wire or something like that they can take advantage of. But,
always
doing
that.
nothing, a little annoying to me.
It is a little annoying. But with all that being said, with no trades at the trade deadline, with Dak Prescott being out, with the Eagles running a 4-game winning streak, what do you think is going to happen down there on the 80-degree football field of Arlington, Texas?
So I'm not sure if this is going to be a blowout from first minute to the last one, like 40-0, 44-6, whatever you want to say. I do think we'll end up probably winning, maybe not covering that 7.5. That's the point spread there. But I think by the end of it, we'll be like, all right, we got out of there. It was a trap game situation. And now we can look forward to having Washington be for first place. So I think we're going to end up coming out of there with a win.
And what are Kyle Quinn's 3 keys to Eagles victory?
Yeah, so the first one we just talked about a little bit ago is that with this being a trap game, you can't look past the Cowboys and look at the Commanders. You got to get to the Commanders game first, give yourself an opportunity for that game to be for first place in the division at home. You can really set yourself in a good spot just by winning this game. So you can't overlook the Cowboys, even though Dak Prescott's out, because, you see around the league sometimes teams get that little backup quarterback bump. Just the initial week where the starter's out, the backup comes in, and the other teams don't really know how to prepare for them. So I think they need to sort of be prepared for that kind of thing to happen. And then the fact that Michael Parsons is back, you have to look out for him if they want to line him up against Fred Johnson. Did not have a good game last week. Just trap game vibes all over it. They have to be all over that kind of stuff. So can't overlook the Cowboys. The second one is, and this feels like the same thing we're saying every week, but it's true. I mean, you got to run the ball down this team's throat. They suck at stopping the run. We are one of the best running teams in the NFL. We have one of the best running backs in the NFL. This is a game where you just ground the Cowboys to death, tire them out, and hopefully put this one away pretty early, and you can give Saquon rest and let Kenny Gainwell finish up the job there. So with the Cowboys being as bad as they are stopping the run, you have to absolutely have to take advantage of that. They're also terrible at running the ball on offense, Dallas. So the third key to victory for me is just make sure you stop CeeDee Lamb. Don't let him dominate you. Cooper Rush is probably going to be looking to him a lot. They don't run the ball as a result of how badly they do it. So I think even with Dak Prescott out, they're not going to try and deviate too much from their game plan that they have because I don't think they really have much better of an option. So I think we're going to see Cooper Rush trying to throw the ball a lot. And the only really good weapon that they have there is CeeDee Lamb at this point. So have to have a plan for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, listen, what planet that you go and if you have real Super Bowl aspirations, that your biggest upgrade at running back was Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
I really don't understand. Whatever. All right, you're right, Kyle. My third key to Eagles victory is, you mentioned it, the Cooper Rush effect, or the backup quarterback effect. The Eagles don't do well for some odd reason, and you can make a case that a lot of teams struggle against backup quarterbacks, but we've seen some stigmas in the past with the Eagles and the backup quarterback. Keep doing what you're doing. It's been working. I know you mentioned that Vic Fangio likes to mix it up. Why is that such a? I mean, that should be how it is every week. They should be new for the opponents, but don't overlook Cooper Rush because the theme of this game is a trap game, and Cooper Rush is part of that theme. My number 2 key to Eagles victory is a fast start. Kyle, just give me a goddamn touchdown on the opening drive, and I can stop talking about this. All right, I just give me a touchdown on the opening drive, and I can stop talking about this. And I promise everybody that I will once they do it. And my number 1 key to Eagle victory is the trap game. There's a huge game looming on Thursday night in Philly against the Commanders for first place in the NFC East. This is a huge 2-3 game swing in the standings if the Eagles lose, which will take the luster off Thursday night because then it probably won't be for first place. So you can't look past the Cowboys. You can't. You just gotta handle your business.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that both of our keys to victory in a game like this is Cooper Rush. Look out for Cooper Rush. It's not necessarily look out for Cooper Rush. It's just, don't let that be your mindset going into the game. The good thing is the Eagles were the one team that beat Cooper Rush in 2022, and he was picking up for the Cowboys and Dak Prescott's injury then. So, sometimes you overlook a backup quarterback, and sometimes you're just a better team, and you murder the backup quarterback, and you murder the Cowboys. And let's hope that that's the result.
Absolutely. And Kyle, give me your prediction, your winner, and your MVP or player of the game.
Yeah, so I do think the Eagles are going to come out of this one. I don't think they're going to kill them. I'll go 27-20 Eagles. Mm-hmm. And MVP, I mean, I'm going back to the Saquon well, man. Have to.
Yeah. I agree with that. I also got the Eagles to win this game. Not necessarily because, well, in this case, I do believe they will win, but I don't care if the Eagles are 0-15 and the Cowboys are 15-0. I will never, ever pick the Dallas Cowboys to win. So I got the Eagles winning this game 38-24, and I also have Saquon going as the MVP. So I'm going to ride Saquon together one more week. Kyle Quinn.
Sure. Always pick with your heart, not with your head, man.
That's how I roll, man. You know that. But all right, that leads me to the final point of our segment. By the way, everything on this show is brought to you by the great folks over here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Please like and subscribe and tell a friend about all of our platforms. And we're growing this thing from the ground up. But all right, question of the week time. I take a lot of time and effort to come up with a great question of the week, and I think I might have a good one. We are kind of at the unofficial halfway point of the season. When you have 17 games, you really don't, I guess, have a halfway point, 8.5, but whatever. Saquon Barkley has been everything advertised and then some. We haven't had an NFL MVP win as a running back since 2012 with Adrian Peterson. If Saquon continues at this clip, is Saquon Barkley a serious candidate to win the MVP this year?
So he won't probably ever win it, just become a quarterback award. I'm not saying a running back will never win it again. Just don't think it's very likely that he wins it with the way that some of the other quarterbacks are playing. He might get some votes just because that's how it goes sometimes. But you can even look, I mean, the unfortunate thing is Derrick Henry's having just as good of a season on another really good team over there in the AFC. So I think they might end up just sort of defaulting and giving it to Lamar again. Josh Allen's playing a really good season. And Jared Goff, even though he's not putting up crazy numbers, like he's just winning. And if he ends up with one of the best records in football, you could see it go to him. You could see it go to Patrick Mahomes. I just don't really see a path for Saquon to end up getting enough votes to win it.
Yeah, but he's definitely, Eagles MVP.
He could,
right?
Sure. I think him or A.J. Brown, you can make that argument. He also definitely could, Matt, win Offensive Player of the Year.
Player of the Year, yeah.
Yeah,
that could definitely be it. But we haven't had an impactful running back like this. I mean, I don't. No. Shady, but
decade, yep.
Shady wasn't like this, though. I mean,
Shady led the decade in rushing yards. So, but in terms of a one-season pace, he's on pace to shatter all that.
Yeah. But it's definitely been an amazing run. All right, Kyle. Yep. Listen, I appreciate your time this week, as I do every week. And before I let you go, please tell the folks where they can find you.
So, Sports Radio WIP, of course, the midday show with Joe and Hugh every Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. And on Twitter, Kyle_Quinn WIP.
All right, brother. We'll talk next. Well, actually, we'll probably talk Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday. We got to figure that out as we got a short week this week. All right.
Yes, sir. All right, buddy. We'll figure it out. Talk to you soon.
All right, Kyle. All right, Kyle Quinn. As always. All right. Again, everything on this show is brought to you by the It's a Wrap Sports Network as we are busy day here on the network. I'll be back here in a couple hours, actually, for the Flyers postgame show. But before I do that, let me wrap up this with my review of Week 9 and my picks segment, and then also my picks for Week 10, even though, again, it's Saturday, and I'm aware that the Bengals and Ravens have already played. But, we got to go through this. So let me go back and let me I was amazing. Another 11-4 week, 3 now in a row. I've had 3 11-4 weeks. I was 11-4 in Week 9. Now on the season, 79-58. As definitely trending in a different upwards trajectory. Was really struggling there for a while. But this week was definitely Week 9 and Week 8 were really good weeks. But on the Week 10, as I mentioned, I definitely am. I want the Eagles. I got the Eagles beating the Cowboys. I also did take Baltimore. Again, integrity is what it is, and I did take Baltimore. I wrote these picks down back on Tuesday, so I got the Ravens in that game Thursday. Great game, by the way. Give me the Giants over the Panthers. Give me the give the Bears over the Patriots. The Buffalo Bills over Indy. Give me KC over Denver. Atlanta over New Orleans, and San Fran over Tampa. Give me the Commanders over the Steelers, setting up the scene for that battle for first place on Thursday night. Minnesota, Jacksonville, give me Minnesota. Give me the Chargers over the Titans. The Jets beat the Cardinals. And Sunday night, the Lions will beat Houston. And on Monday night, the Miami Dolphins will beat the Rams. And there you go. There's my Week 10 picks. So awesome. All right, so that's going to wrap us up here on the program. Thank Kyle Quinn once again for taking some time with us. Thank you out there for taking some time with me, and remind you that a little bit later on in a couple hours, I will be back for Clear the Ice Flyers Panthers postgame around 9 o'clock-ish. The game is underway out there in South Florida. So please be back for that, and please be back for everything that we're doing here on this network. Again, growing it from the ground up. So until we talk in a couple hours, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you real soon.
I've been coming up hot for a minute. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. I drop the top when I'm in it. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Yeah, I so. Everybody know I'm on. You know when the click through. Then it's about to be a slow beat.